Great day, everyone. And it is a pleasure to be talking with all of you today. As you remember, my name is Isabella, and I'm very, very excited to be having this talk today. I hope all of you have had a fantastic week, and I hope all of you are as excited for the holidays as I am. This is actually the first holiday when I'm not working or I'm not trying to fill my time by doing something productive. I'm actually going to be spending time with some family, and I'm looking forward to it. Actually, I'm looking forward to the change. It is a bit of a change of pace for me because over the last few years I've been spending Christmas just working. But hey, got to try something new every once in a while. And while I have certain individuals within my life right now, I am happy to be sharing that with them. So, what I want to know is, how have you been? How has your week been? What have you been up to? What is new? And what do you currently have going on in your life? Maybe it's not new. So with that, please consider commenting below. So this talk today, we're going to be going over how to communicate and have a talk with someone when you're scared. Now with that, it is a bit of a delicate topic. And so I want to throw out a bit of a preface to you all, a few of them actually. And that is that this is not for everyone. Anything that I ever have to talk about is not going to be for everyone. And I understand that. Not every situation is the same. But hopefully you are able to take the information that I provide and find some sort of answers to incorporate it into your own situation if this doesn't work for you. And if not, that's okay too. But hopefully this gives you some idea. Hopefully this is helpful to you. Now, how to communicate to someone when you're scared is something that is very personal to me. It is something that I had to learn how to do as I worked myself out of my trauma, as I worked myself out of the relations that I was born into that were relative to my trauma. And so with that, let me first put out there that I'm still learning a lot of this, and I'm still going through a lot of it. But I was able to take what I have learned from that, and I've applied it to all areas of my relationships. I've applied it to work, I've applied it to family, I've applied it to friends, I've applied it into every area. And it's been absolutely rewarding for me. And I've even passed on these ideas to some of my friends and to some of my family. But the one thing that is a requirement for me is that you understand that what I'm putting out there, you never, ever have to try to use. All of this is completely voluntary. If you want the help, this is just an idea for you. This is one way of trying it. I want you to understand that help is out there. I wish a lot of these videos were out there for me when I was going through things. And it's because of knowing that it wasn't there for me that I want to put it out there for people. Now, I'm going to be covering a whole wide range of topics, but this is just one of them. And this topic, like I said, it is a bit personal for me, and it is one that I hope will help you within your life. So, with that being said, let's get into it. Now, when it comes to a situation of being scared to have a conversation with someone, there's two dynamics that we're going to focus on this talk. The first dynamic is, are we afraid to have a conversation with someone because of who they are? Maybe they're a boss. Maybe they just have some sort of authority over you. Maybe you're underage and this is your caregiver, your provider. Maybe you're a grown adult and this is a relative to you. Whoever this is, it doesn't matter, but you have that fear because of who they are. Now, why you have that fear is the next question. Do you have that fear because in past experiences this person has been known to lash out? Do you have that fear because your relationship with them is not used to having serious conversations that otherwise remain calm, and maybe it's just not a situation of lashing out. Whatever the situation is, the first dynamic is about this person. This person is obviously involved in the situation that you're going to bring to them. And it has probably come to a point to where this talk needs to happen. So first, let me start off by saying that I'm so proud of you for acknowledging that this talk, whatever it is, has to happen. And I'm also proud of you for acknowledging that you're at a point to where you have to go to this person to have this conversation. That's not easy, especially if it's someone of authority. Even still to this day, when I question authority, when not so much question their position, but maybe question something that they tell me, and because they're in that position of authority on me, I'm scared of how that situation is going to go. Often enough, you don't see within society that people are willing to have calm conversations, especially if they're being questioned about something. Our natural instinct, as we are taught growing up, is to be defensive. So something to consider is asking yourself before sitting down to have this conversation, before even bringing it up, is who is this person to you? Are they someone that you're even going to be able to have this conversation with? Or are they a brick wall? Are they going to sit there and be willing at first to say that, yeah, we'll have this talk, but then it just goes in one ear and out the other? Don't waste your time. Or is this someone that's not very receptive to these types of conversations? Whatever that situation is, really take the time to consider that for your own well-being, because if you know that this is just going to be a limited outcome situation, then it may be best to avoid that, and that's okay too. Remember, you're having this talk because it is for your betterment, your well-being, and it needs to happen. And so if you decide who they are, and you decide that you are able and willing to attempt to have a conversation with this person, then that's when you need to decide, what is important to me for this conversation? What do I hope to get out of it? What don't I want to happen? What sort of boundaries do I need from this person? You know, if I need to have a talk with someone who gets very emotional and maybe prone to yelling and screaming, when I need this to be as calm as it can so that I can be as effective as I can be, then maybe I need to phrase that in a way that they'll understand. I've used this before in past talks with people. I'll come to the table and I'll say, listen, I'm admittedly scared to have this conversation with you. And I don't mean that personally in any way, but this is something that does exist for me, so I do want to put that out there. I know in past moments, and I've been guilty of it too, when we've raised voices and we've hollered, but I need that to not happen here. And if it does happen, I need you to understand that I will not participate in that. Something that I make sure within my current relationships today is that people understand that I'm not going to holler. I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to bicker. I will not do it. I have less than zero tolerance for it. I will attempt to have conversations with people, but if I start to notice that it escalates to that point, I back out. Just because I don't have the energy for that, and my mental health, my emotional health are too important for that. And so having those boundaries not only protects me, but it protects them as well. They may not understand it in that moment, but hopefully this person is knowledgeable enough to, after having time to calm down, they're able to see that, yeah, it was getting pretty heated. And maybe this talk can happen, maybe it can't. Either way, you saved yourself the trouble. You saved yourself that moment of exhausting yourself emotionally, because we all understand that once a talk gets to a certain point where that level of irrationality, emotion is fueling everything that we say, once it gets to that point, it's hard to come back down from it. So don't run the risk of that if you can help it, please. And so when I'm at the table and I bring that And I want to express that this talk is something that does have to happen. And I'm going to do my best to orchestrate it in a way that keeps everyone calm and collected. But if in the moments that this does become too much, then we will have to end it. That's an okay thing too. You put out there your intentions. You put out there your expectations. And you put out there a safeguard to let everyone know what you're doing for yourself. And that's wonderful. And that is absolutely okay. So I do want to touch base when it comes to work. If you're going to have a conversation with an employer about maybe something that they've said or something that you don't absolutely agree with, obviously that's not something that you may have to bring to that tabled conversation. Or maybe it is, and that's okay too. At least in my experiences, whenever I've come across an employer, someone who's above me with something that I don't agree with, I'll bring it up in conversation and let them know that I have a few questions. If the conversation gets heated, I will apologize, even if I'm not the one who's hollering. And I will ask them if we can continue this conversation later, because I want to keep everything as professional between us as possible. Now, in the past, at least in my experiences with people that I've worked with, either that has proven to help the situation or that has proven to frustrate them even more, which then tells me that I need to step away. There have been so many moments within the last few years of my life when I've questioned a superior. And not just because I want to challenge them or anything like that. Not because I don't respect who they are to me, I do. But if I didn't understand something or if I did not agree with something, then I do question them on it, just so that I can understand and make sure that I'm being my best self professionally. And if this is a situation where it is do as I say without question, then be very, very cautious of that, because there's typically an underlying reason why it is without question. And if it's a situation where there's not enough time to explain, and I'll explain later, then it doesn't take a whole lot of time to just say that. So please be cautious of that whenever you're going to have a conversation with a superior. So I can think of one example with a superior of mine as far as work went. And in that moment, what the individual was wanting from me, I was not able to provide. I was being put into a wearing many hats situation, and what he was hoping to get out of me, he was not able to. And he was becoming very frustrated, and he was being a bit being aware of this. I asked him if he was mad at me at that moment, and he's like, yes. And I'm like, would you like me to go away? And he goes, well, no, but yes as well. And I'm like, that's okay, I will go away, but we do have to revisit this. I want to have this conversation with you, and I feel like there's issues from both sides issues from both sides that we do need to discuss. But if you have to take that pause, then that's okay too. This whole dynamic of who the person is in your life, like I said, there are many, many situations that can come up and how to go about this. And if I had all the time to share all of them with you, well, no one has that much time, because the future is always unpredictable. But hopefully you're understanding my point. And that is that just be cautious. Don't rush and take time to think. Even if you have to have a conversation that is based out of emotion, take the time to think. Take the time to gather yourself. Don't just jump into the mud pit without any sort of protective gear and hoping that you'll come out clean and okay. It doesn't work that way. So we've established who they are, and we've kind of given a little bit of thought to how to go into this and some things to preface. And now it's time to have that conversation with them. I want you to know that if this is a situation that is real to you, if this is a situation that is important to you, if this is a situation that cannot be taken care of until this conversation happens, then don't be afraid to have it. Don't be afraid to acknowledge what needs to happen. Something that was always difficult for me, especially on my path of self-progression, was to acknowledge that I wasn't okay with something and I have no idea how to get this person to stop. Or I have no idea how to tell this employer how I'm feeling. Or I have no idea how to be honest with someone about how I'm feeling, because what it is that I'm saying is not correct because I wasn't taught correctly. Now, granted, there may not be a correct and incorrect, or there may not be just a specific correct way. But I think we can all agree that in moments, we all have moments where it is, well, that's not what I meant to say. I meant to say this, but we don't realize it till later. And that can come from just the spike of emotion. So just be aware of that. Be cognizant of how you're going to go into the situation, who this person is, what it is that you can and cannot say. And of course, don't assume how they are going to react, but try to be cautious. And the third aspect that I want to go over in this specific dynamic of who the person is, respecting individuality. Individuality is something that is a requirement for me within my relationships. And it's not something that I always recognize that I'm not following right away, but I'm doing my best. So what I mean by individuality is that I need whoever I'm about to attempt a relationship with or a friendship with to be aware that there's no codependency here. There may be things that I can benefit from having you in my life, but I don't need to depend on you, and I don't want you to depend on me. We both have separate lives. And so with that, there's separate needs, there are separate wants, there are separate desires. There's a whole laundry list of separate concepts that go into play there when we're discussing individuality. And I have to respect that there's going to be a difference. There's going to be a difference of opinion. And I can have a talk with people, and we can agree to disagree, and that's okay. My long-term partner, fantastic individual. I absolutely love them. Some of the conversations that we have, we get to a point to where we're challenging each other, we're rebuttaling each other, and we just come to an understanding that whatever that point is, the one doesn't agree with the other, and they're not going to for whatever the reason is, and that's absolutely okay. It doesn't mean that I love them any less, and it doesn't mean that I think lesser of them. But it's just a difference of opinion. Having a difference of opinion can be such an empowering thing because it also allows in the opportunity for both sides to think about what the other person has said and shared with them. My partner and I, we have many of those moments together, and because we're able to respect each other's individuality, we benefit from it as well. Now, obviously, when it comes to certain serious life-changing decisions, we do have to have some agreements with, and something that I like to think about with the both of us is that we are two individuals of the same person, which is fantastic. And so with that, there's the acknowledgement that we're two different individuals. And when we come up to a situation, whether it be with an employer or a family member, someone who has that authority, or maybe they don't have any authority and we're just scared of having this conversation with them, we have to respect that that's an individual person. This conversation may mean that I may have to end that relation with them because it's such an important disagreement. But it doesn't mean that you care about them any less, and it doesn't mean that you love them any less. It just means that whatever it is cannot be agreed upon, and for it to continue the way that it is may be damaging. And so in the idea of self-preservation and self-progression, it is absolutely okay to say, I respect you for that, but we can't continue because this is too damaging to me, if it is. Or maybe it's just as simple as saying, hey, that's okay that you feel that way. I don't feel that way, and I don't think that way. Let's agree to disagree, and let's end the conversation here. I kind of had that this morning at breakfast, actually, which was a bit interesting as far as the timing went with this video. We had a table discussion between me, my partner, and another individual. And while the two of them were in agreement about something, I was in disagreement. Now, we followed the steps as far as the explanations and the trying to hear the other person out, but we just couldn't come to an agreement. And that was absolutely okay. It's normal, and it is so very healthy to acknowledge individuality, to acknowledge that obviously not everyone is built the same. Not everyone has the same life. And with that, you're going to have differences in perspectives and opinions about things. There are quite a few people within my life who I share a lot of agreements with. And we have very different lives. There are people who I share disagreements with, and we have similar lives. It's interesting how that plays out. And however it is for you, going into a situation, understanding that they are their own person and I am my own person, and we're just putting it out there and we're having this conversation, is so powerful and it is so healthy. And that's something that I'm desperately encouraging you to consider, please. For your own health, for their own health, remember who this person is before you and after you is their own person. And that's true for any sort of relationship, just like you are your own person before and after them. So keep that in mind when you're going into this conversation. Keep that in mind that there may be something that comes up that you didn't think of, and it's a learning experience for you. Learning experiences are not a bad thing. Holding yourself accountable is definitely not a bad thing. I always make sure that I do my best to put out there that if I am wrong about something, please correct me. I may question you about it and I may challenge you on it, but it is not in the aspect of I want to be right. It is in the aspect of I need to understand. And these questions and these challenges that I'm putting out there are for me to do that so that I can make the best decision for myself. And in doing that, it has enriched my relationship so much to the point to where I now have a newfound respect for myself and my relationships. And I have found that though not everyone agrees with that, and that is okay, those that do agree with that are the best individuals within my life. And those that don't agree with it or are not able to follow through with that sort of respect, they're not in my life anymore. And that's okay too. They are their own person. There's that level of incompatibility there. And acknowledging that that's there. And acknowledging that it's better to cut ties than to force something that just doesn't work is hard, but it is healthy. So, that's on the idea of individuality. Keep that in mind when going into this person. Especially if you are younger. Especially if you are older. Especially if you're middle age. Be ready to be wrong. Be ready to be right, but be humble. Be ready to learn. Because even if you are right about something, there's still so many things that can be learned from that. And if you are wrong, then there are so many things to be learned from that as well. Individuality. You are your own person before this person and after this person. Now, we are going to talk about the other dynamic of the reasoning behind why you're scared to have a talk with this person. You know, maybe it's a situation in which you're going to go put in a 2 weeks notice. Maybe it's a situation of you did something that this person told you not to do, and because of it you now have consequences and you need to confess to them. Maybe it's a situation of the difference of opinions and this person doesn't accept that very well. Whatever the reason is, you're scared to share this information because of what has happened, what has transpired. So with that, how do we get to a point to be able to communicate that to someone while being scared? It's very, very hard to do that. Maybe, unfortunately, you are in a toxic and abusive environment, whatever the situation is, this topic is not going to be easy. So with that, it's going to coexist a little bit with what I was saying about you're scared because of who the person is, not necessarily what the reason is. And you had to put some prefaces out there on the table. So trying to come to one is a situation that I had with someone in my life was due to who was in their life. It was causing them to change in a way that was affecting me and my associations with them. And it was very, very painful to experience because though people change, we all have different lives, and sometimes those lives lead us in different directions. You hope that you're still going to be able to have that person later on in your life. And at that point, within that situation, because of who they were hanging out with, it was changing them in such a negative way that it was damaging to me whenever they would associate. And that was very hard to experience. And I knew because of their attachments towards those other people or person that they were not going to handle this news lightly. They unfortunately are an individual that does not accept information that tells them, hey, what you're doing may not be okay. And so with that, I had to consider, is this a conversation that was worth having with them? Well, it's damaging me, so yeah, I need to have this conversation with them. But I need to thoroughly think about and understand what it is that's happening. I have to be factual about this. I cannot be subjective because of who they are to me. I cannot be biased because of who they are to me. I have to make sure that they understand. I have to provide the idea, and I have to follow it up with facts and evidence in order for them to see what is happening. And so when I went to go do that, and I told them, hey, you're doing this and this and this, and their immediate response was, no, that's not me. That's not happening. I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't know why you're acting like that. And so I took that, and I said, well, if you would like, I can provide you with specific examples. And fortunately, they said yes, and I let them know when it specifically happened and how this whole mess had came to be. Now, that was not a very easy talk. We didn't end the conversation on laughing together, but we did have an understanding of what had happened. We did have an understanding that this is a very real situation. We did have an understanding that there were facts that cannot be ignored. And with that, fortunately, after a break, this individual is still within my life. And what I mean by a break is that we had to come to an understanding that we are in such different lives together that there are certain boundaries that have to be followed in order to have some sort of connection together. The boundaries that existed years ago don't play a part in today. The boundaries that existed then are not valid now because it's not the same lives for either of us now. And that's absolutely okay. As saddening and scary as that is, my dear friends, that is absolutely okay. So, having that level of accountability within that person, within myself, it definitely is quite the experience. And you're not going to come out the same for it. Your relationship may not come out the same for it. You know, either we have something that benefits us and it can grow, or if we keep it around and it lowers us and it damages us, or we can end it altogether. Whatever the case may be, understand that that's normal. That's a part of life, and that is a part of relationships. But that never needs to stop us from our self-preservations, from our self-progression, and from our own personal, emotional, and physical health. We have to keep that in mind if we ever hope to achieve healthy relationships, waking up stress-free as much as we can. Those are some things that we have to keep in mind. Now, if it is a situation where the reason that you're scared to have this talk with someone is maybe you are underage. Maybe you've done something that is absolutely wrong, and you realize after the incident that you should have known better. But this, unfortunately, is not an incident that you can hide by whatever means. And you've got to go confess to it. And with that, I want you to know that, especially if you're 18 or younger, or 21 and younger, realistically, and your brain is still developing, it is normal to have that heightened sense of emotion. It is absolutely normal to be scared. And it is absolutely normal to make mistakes. You came into this world without knowing what this world is, and you are growing up without knowing things that someone like me, a 26-year-old, knows. There are things that I'm learning that a 45-year-old knows that I don't know. And because of that, we're always going to make mistakes. We're going to make mistakes until the day that we die. But that's part of the human journey, is to learn, to adapt, and to grow from it. So if this is a situation in which you've made a mistake and you need to confess, acknowledge that it's going to happen, but it doesn't mean that you're a bad person, and it doesn't mean that you're a wrong person, even if we make the wrong decisions sometimes. And the fact that you're able to understand that this talk needs to happen is amazing. That right there shows you know the difference between right and wrong. Unfortunately, this was just an experience that you didn't realize the wrong, or you didn't know the wrong until after what has happened has already happened. And you need to have that talk. So how do you have that talk? Well, first, take the time to think about everything that I just said. Become self-aware of what that means to you. And also be cognizant that, especially if you're going to have this conversation with a set of authority figures who may not do a whole lot of research into childhood development, or maybe they don't do a whole lot of research into peaceful parenting, they may not recognize that these mistakes are going to happen so frequently, and even ones that may be common sense to them. So there may be that aspect of heightened emotions from their end. And I'm sorry that that may be the case. But I want you to know that realistically, there's still a lot of information to be gathered in and to be taught and to be put out there into the world when it comes to parenting and caregiving. And even if you do your best to do the research, you're still going to learn. Some amazing parents that I know, some amazing individuals that I follow within my professional life that I learn from, they're still learning. Again, you're always going to be learning. But with that, understand that experiences and what it is that you're experiencing is going to be an experience for them. Maybe it's something they thought of, maybe it's something they haven't. But it doesn't change the fact that you're going to have this talk and it's not going to be easy. But one thing that I can definitely promise you is that in my years, my only 26 years of life that I've had thus far, and I've had quite a few experiences because of my childhood and because of mistakes of my own that I can't excuse with my childhood, with that, tomorrow is going to be a new day. A year from now, hopefully, whatever the situation is, will not be something that will be such a big part of your life. Hopefully it's not had such a life-altering effect. And as you grow up, you're going to grow up, and a lot of these situations, yes, you learn from them, but they're not going to matter in 10 years. They may not matter in 15 years, but they do matter now. And that's what's hard, is getting through what does matter now, especially when it is very, very scary. But I do encourage you to do your best to keep yourself as calm and collected, especially if this is going to be an experience with individuals who are prone to not be so calm and collected. As long as you do your part to take care of yourself, to keep yourself gathered and okay, then that will make you so very strong. And that will help you on the other side of this situation. Because that was going to be an experience for you that you will remember for next time. I know that I've just thrown a lot of information out there, and I know that it may be difficult to understand and process. So take everything that I'm saying with a grain of salt for anyone that's watching this. And that's okay too, because like I said, this isn't for everyone. Each situation is different. But obviously, there is some sort of talk that needs to happen. And maybe there's something that you're looking for, that you don't know how to have this talk without it just lashing out. And guess what? There's even going to be situations where no matter how prepared you are for them, they may still not end okay. Now, I've talked about and prepared these moments of how things may not end okay and what to do to prepare for them. But I want to talk about, for a moment, the benefits and the rewards that come from having the boundaries, having exercised everything that I've just put out there. I want to share that with you. I want to give you a little bit of insight into my personal life. All right. So I want to share with you guys a bit of insight into my personal life. So my personal life consists of this. If, like I told you before when we were discussing individuality, is that I have a respect of differences for people. I understand that not everyone is going to agree with or support me, especially putting myself out there like I have been. It's actually been interesting to see the lack of responses that I've been getting from those personal in my life, and that's completely okay. I'm in a situation where I need to prove myself with what it is that I'm doing and what it is that I want to do. Obviously, I don't have any college education, and obviously I have no formal training when it comes to dealing with psychology, or when it comes to dealing with a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about. So with that, there's a whole big wave of caution that is applied onto me, and I love that. I want there to be caution. I want to be questioned, and I want to be challenged. And so I do my best within my relationships to know that that's okay. I've had people come up to me and they'll say, "Hey, Bella, I kind of wanted to talk to you about this, but I'm afraid you'll get mad." And I'll say, "Okay, I understand that this may be something that's going to cause me to be emotional. I'm going to do my best to not get mad. And even if I do feel mad, I'm going to put out there, hey, I am feeling this way. I need to step away for a moment." And that's okay. But because I have the respect for because I have the requirement for individuality within my personal relationships, I have that expectation for someone that I choose to have within my life, that what they've got going on is not going to fall on me. And that's great. As much as I care about those within my life, as much as I love and care about my family, people have their own problems. I have my own problems. And out of respect for them, unless it somehow involves them, I'm not going to put what is going on with me onto them, because I respect that they are their own individual person. I cannot, it's sort of that whole, leave home at home and leave work at work mentality. Very, very powerful, very, very important. And so with that, I expect that what someone's got going on in their life as far as problems, they're not going to come to me later on down the road, "Hey, I need you to take care of this for me." No, I'm not. It's not my problem to take care of. Now, if it's someone asking me for help, then I will consider the situation and my involvement and what that's going to mean for me, my health, and my home. And then if I can involve myself in that, then I will. And with that, that's not been easy for my family. And that's not been easy for my friendships. I've lost friendships. I've lost family because of that. But the reward is that I'm able to focus on my own tasks. I don't have time to take care of other people's problems that are not of my own interpersonal life. I don't have time to deal with stress that is not en route of my own path that I'm following. And that's self-preservation, and that is selfishness. But that's an okay selfishness to have. And unfortunately, I'm one of those people where if someone's coming to me and they're just complaining about whatever situation, I'm waiting to hear, what are you doing about it? What are you doing to try to fix this or try to eliminate this problem? Well, I haven't really done anything. Well, that's unfortunate, and I'm so sorry that you're in that situation, but I don't care. This is a very negative conversation. This is tiring me. This is boring me completely. I would like to hear how or what it is that you're doing to fix that situation. Or if you don't know what to do, then let's discuss options. And I'd be happy to have that conversation. But if it's just a conversation where you want to complain about your day for an hour, that's an hour wasted that I don't really have to offer you, because I need positive energy to keep myself going. And with that, whereas I was younger and I used to wake up to these moments of having text messages and phone calls from people that, well, he said this or they said that, or I need you to do this and I need you to do that, and blah, 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 blah. I don't have that anymore, thankfully. I moved 2 hours away from where I used to live. I'm currently living in Columbus, Ohio. It's a fantastic city, and it's a fantastic life that I have here. But I was able to achieve this even before leaving. Did I lose conversations, the frequency of conversations with people? Yeah. Because they're caught up in drama and negativity, and that just is not the direction of my life. If I want to be successful, I need to focus my time of learning and growing. And how can I create change? How can I innovate? How can I put myself out there? How can I be in a position to where I'm recording videos and I have this YouTube channel and I have these social media accounts and I'm putting all this effort and time into putting myself out there. So one of these days I can be out there talking in front of a group of people. And hopefully I can impact someone, at least one person. And I'm able to accomplish all of this. I'm able to have fantastic romantic relationships. I'm able to have fantastic friendships. And I'm able to have family that is blood and not blood within my life because of who I am and what it is that I'm doing for myself. And those people are able to respect my boundaries. Those people are able to respect what it is that I do and don't want within my life. And I have that. That is my reward for having conversations that are scary. For having conversations with people that scared me. There are people who are not in my life that I thought would be. There are people within my life who I want in my life, but I just can't. As saddening and as much of a grieving process as that has been, it has been worth it. And I am the happiest I have ever been. And I want the same for you. My whole passion for doing this is that I want to put this out there for people to turn to. There's going to be many topics that I'm going to be covering. There's going to be many ideas that I'm going to try. I just got a newsletter out and I'm trying to figure out how to do that monthly. I'm going to get better with my editing. I'm going to get better with my topics and my speaking and not burping so much whenever I do talk. You guys should see the outtakes. It's pretty interesting. So with that, to have a human experience, just follow the curriculum. And the curriculum is just to live. The curriculum is to think. The curriculum is to feel. It's what I did, and it got myself out of everything that I ever went through. It got me this wonderful life. It got me this successful life. It got me this professional life. If it can do that for me, imagine what it can do for you. Thank you so very much for your time. Please take care, and I look forward to talking with all of you again in my next video.